Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I'm excited to have as my guest Lior Arussy, and let me tell you about Lior. He's hailed as one of the world's leading authorities on customer experience and strategy execution. He is an author, a visionary, and a creative change agent. His insights and methods have been successfully put into practice in over 200 corporate transformations worldwide, making Lior not only a forerunner in the field, but a proven practitioner. What truly sets Lior apart, where other speakers talk of change, Lior makes it happen time and time again. As inspiring as he is passionate, Lior's unique and critical voice continues to drive people across the globe to achieve their ultimate success. So today we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart as a speaker and a trainer, and that is to take charge of your own stories. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Lior Arussy. Lior, so excited for this conversation.
Well, Vicki, thank you very much for hosting me at your podcast. I'm looking forward.
So we have two simple questions. I always say that, and then people throw me for a loop. But the first one is, where do you call home? Where do you live right now?
I live in New Jersey. Englewood, New Jersey is home for me.
Awesome. And we gave a little bit about what your background was like, but I love for my guests to share their backstory of the different paths and twist turns that they took in life that maybe changed their direction of where they thought they were going to go to where they ultimately have ended up. So what brought you to what you do today?
So it is, in fact, as you stated, a lot of turns and tribulation that they actually there. I started my career in technology startups. I've done two startups that one of them was successful, one of them was less so. From there, I moved to HP, so big corporate experience. And I noticed that while I'm selling technology, I'm really helping organization change. And one of those changes that I was promoting was actually online banking. We're the first one to solve the security problem associated with that. So while I was trying to convince CIOs to buy my technology, I was really helping them struggle with the issue of change and allowing millions of customers to come into their network. From there, I moved to another technology company called NICE, which is in the call center business. And actually, September 11 caught us with 200 clients in the two buildings.
Wow.
So we had a lot of work about helping them rebuild. And, the losses, obviously, some of them were friends and customers. So I found myself again in change, and after that, when I started to kind of add all these things up, I kind of enjoyed less the technology side, and I enjoyed more the helping people go through the change and understanding their customers and falling in love with their customers. And that's when I started my consulting firm, Strativity, in 2003, built it to a global consulting business with 150 consultants and offices in Australia, Canada, London, and New York.
Wow. As you were talking about the introducing online banking, I know one of the projects that I was involved with leading was related to moving from doing things in person to trusting online. And it was really, especially when you got to the larger companies, there was this distrust of having the internet in their office space, that the people would
Yeah.
be surfing the net and doing things. And so they didn't want to introduce this technology that would make them so much more efficient and customer focused because they're of this fear of the unknown. And well, we know how that's all changed today.
Absolutely, and this is really where we as human beings have a very mixed relationship with change. If we are initiating it, we are way ahead of everyone else. If someone else initiates it, we're all kind of struggling with fear and flight and fight and a whole bunch of things. And that's really where kind of the idea for the book came from after I dealt with so many companies around that. Um, it's at the end of the day, what's holding us back from being future ready is we are holding on to old stories and we're not evolving our story.
Yes. So the name of your book is Dare to Author. And as people might misunderstand that title, you're not talking about authoring books. What does authoring really mean to you in this context that we're talking about and taking charge of our own stories?
So what I noticed when I work with a variety of organizations is that employees were struggling with change because they were holding on to old tools and old stories and old chapters, and they didn't know how to close that chapter, but more importantly, they didn't know how to convert that chapter into future strength and into future resilience. So I'll give you an example that's relatively recent that I talk about in the book. COVID, we all started as victims. None of us had any idea what to do with that. And I remember having conversations with executives from different clients, and they all said to me the same word. It's unprecedented. We're just absolutely paralyzed. And I said, well, factually, you're right. When you say unprecedented, you also say I'm helpless and I have no tools. So then we did this exercise and we said, let's go to the last time you were experiencing an unprecedented event. And obviously you emerged from it. And let's write that chapter. Now with a bit of a distance, let's write that chapter. And for many of them, it was 2008, 2009, the financial crisis.
Financial crisis. Mm-hmm.
Right. So I said, okay, so let's live through that again. Now in a distance, it was unprecedented. What was the inflection point? What type of values worked for you? What values did you discover about yourself? And what happened is when we wrote that chapter, they started to discover what their superpower is, what is their toolbox for unprecedented events. And all of a sudden it freed up that thinking that this unprecedented event called COVID is actually something that they have tools for. And that's the premise of the book. Oftentimes, we feel helpless and victims in front of unprecedented events because we haven't converted old experiences into future toolbox to deal with the future better. So that's really, for me, authoring is not just bringing to closure old emotions. It's converting those experiences, learning from them deliberately in order to develop your tools and understand your superpower in the future.
So when we think of that, and we saw this in the last several years, when people were allowed themselves to be paralyzed, there were businesses that didn't make it because they lost sight of how they could write their own story. And so talk about how in this, what the consequences are for you not authoring your own story, and what are the next steps that you should take to get you from that frozen state, that impasse, if you will, to becoming active and taking risk, because it is for a lot of people a risk. What steps should they take to become more vibrant and active again?
So excellent point. Let's start with the fact that we all need to accept that the future is going to happen with or without our acceptance. Okay? That's just not a negotiable element. It's not up to you. The only thing that's up to you is how fast do you adapt and how much do you adapt to the future. And as we all know, the old cliche, the best way to welcome the future is to create it. So first start with the fact that the traditional fight, flight responses are very, very dangerous to your business, okay? So you need to accept that we are living in a dynamic world. We're living in a world in which change is the new normal. And our core competence is not going to be our products or services. It's our ability to actually adapt to change and look for opportunities as opposed to look for risks as well. So that's the first mindset, I would say, that you need to adopt and understand whatever you've done yesterday was the best you could have done with the circumstances of yesterday and the tools of yesterday. But tomorrow is a new day and it's a new opportunity and it's a new tools, and just learn to accept it. When it came to COVID, I told a lot of my clients, you know, the good news is you had a strategy and then you got a punch in the face and you're on the floor. Good news is your competition is as well. The only question is who's going to get up faster and who's going to run faster. So, and then I asked them the question, what do you want to do? Do you want to survive or do you want to thrive? And they said, thrive, you got to be kidding. We want to survive. I said, no, because if you're already going through change, let's aim higher. Let's aim for thriving. Let's look at change as an opportunity and not as a negative thing that happened to you. So then you talk about, okay, so what are the next steps? In the book, I advocate that we need to constantly look at unplanned events as gifts, that we need to extract the gold from them. We need to find what are they teaching us about us ourselves. So the book actually, every chapter has prompt questions that's supposed to help you write that chapter for yourself and challenge yourself. And my argument is, you talk about risks. If you do not author your own chapter, it will be authored for you. Your fears, your biases, your prejudice. How many of us have the imposter syndrome? And how debilitating the imposter syndrome can be, and how we can put ourselves down and we are not moving as high as we can because we think we're going to be caught. But the truth is we all have them. And I list a whole bunch of other scars and fears and prejudice that are authoring your life for you when you don't do that. In fact, my argument is, when you play victim to something, you actually give agency to others to author your own chapter. So let's author our own chapter. So what does it mean? So as I said in the book, I provided certain type of prompts in order for you to look at the situation, ask yourself honest questions, and try to be as honest as possible about the threat you're facing, the emotions you're going through, and then start identifying where the opportunities are, and most importantly, where is your superpower? What can you do differently than everyone else? Because we all have different responses. Let's say we're both going to look at the same situation. I may be using humor to diffuse the awkward situation, and you may approach it with an emotional hug, because that's the way to kind of reduce the stress. And I talk about different languages that we use and different words that we use for a certain situation. So identify your language, identify the choice of words that you're using, and identify where your superpower is, and start actually documenting what are you going through and where and how far you want to take it. And in the process, identify where the opportunities are. Don't ask, how do I survive it? Ask, how do I thrive it? These are new tools that are being provided to me. With my own superpower, I can take it to a very different place than other people. So engage in a process, in a discipline. This is not just a mindset. The mindset is to recognize that change is going to happen. Either you're in front of it or you're in the back of it. But the discipline that the book is providing through the prompt questions is actually having you go through a question of, how do I become from a victim to a victor here? What is my superpower? What is the journey I want to take? And try to navigate it to a story that you'll be proud to share with your employees and lead them with that. Try to navigate it to a story you'll be proud to share with your grandchildren, and say, I lived through that, and this is what I did with that.
So true. I remember one of the companies that I work with, they struggle from time to time because I almost think that they were the victim, had that victim mindset from the leadership. And so they just, rather than try to be innovative, creative, and maybe less risk averse, if you will, they just did always, like every 6 months or 8 months, they were doing layoffs of people, and then they get new people and they have to start all over. And it's the amount of money that you spend to retrain and hire and all those things. It could have been put towards those new creative ideas that and training of the people that you have. Maybe that you were cutting training out of your budget because you were trying to get as much profit as you can, but your people will leave if you don't give them the skills that they need to get through their days. So I think what you talk about, taking charge of your own stories, is so important. You be the driver and not be the observer or the person that just always is reacting, but be proactive about things.
Absolutely, and accept the fact life is full of unexpected events. I was asked by someone, but there are some circumstances where I have no control, like I was fired or I was, God forbid, I got a disease. And I said, let's go back as far as possible. Nobody asked you if you want to be born. Nobody asked you if you like your parents when you were born to your parents. Those are unplanned events. Now you have a choice. Do you want to be a victim or do you want to actually grow into a victor?
Yeah, for sure. So today, workers are looking for purpose. You see that a lot of people that were in the corporate world, they had those 3 years or 2.5 years of time to reflect because everything slowed down. I always say that's the gift that God gave us of COVID. And so now you start to question, is this what I'm meant to do? Or is this the legacy that I want to leave? Tell us what you think we need to do to rethink our purpose at work.
So I have a slightly different approach to purpose, and I would love to share it with everyone on your podcast. Purpose, first of all, is not something that someone gives you. It's something that you create for yourself. Let's start with that. Don't expect your CEO to give you purpose. Don't expect your boss to give you purpose.
Right.
Purpose is what you create for yourself. The second gift that you have in any workplace, you have customers. They can be internal customers and they can be external customers. But the moment you focus on the power you have to make the life of a customer better, you can look at the end of the day in the mirror and say, today I helped 15 human beings who without me would have not had the help. And that is a lot of purpose to work with. So look at your customers, look at the recipients of your work as your opportunity to create a sense of purpose through the power you do have and the impact that you can create. In fact, in the book, I cite the research from Harvard Medical Journal that states that people who are dedicating time to charity and to help other people are happier than people who are, more self-centric. And why is that? Because we focus on the power we do have, not the power we don't have, because there are recipients who are grateful. Sometimes they express it, sometimes they don't, but nevertheless, there are human beings that we could make a difference on. Now, as to the advice that I have to talent today, I would tell them the same message. You've got a talent, and you need to decide what is the best stage for you to express yourself and to make an impact on the world. And if you're at a place where the stage is not interesting enough or the challenge is not challenging enough, then find a place that will. But here's what you need to be very careful. No stage will ever be perfect. And the second thing you need to know is the bigger the challenge, the more chaos you're going to see. So if you want to solve big problems, you're going to be on a stage with bigger challenges. If you want to solve small problems, you're going to be in a very safe environment and a stage that doesn't give you a lot of room to grow. Let's say you're passionate about cooking. You love cooking. If you're going to go to McDonald's, no offense to McDonald's, you're not going to express your passion there because you're going to flip burgers at the same exact time as everybody else at every other McDonald's branch. Why? Because they have their way. They're not looking for your talent there. If you're going to go to Olive Gardens, maybe they'll let you play with the vinaigrette a little bit. But I'm not sure you're going to get the expressions of your talent that you're looking for. If you're going to go to a brand new restaurant, or if you're going to go to a Michelin star restaurant where you're going to experiment with things, it's a bigger responsibility, but it's also a bigger stage.
Yeah.
So ask yourself, where would your talent perform the best? And are you looking for big challenge and big problems and therefore willing to accept more chaos and more instability? Or are you looking for more stability and lesser problems, but then you won't get. So there's always a balance. You can find your place, but understand that there will be a price that you're going to have to pay for either option.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So my prior career to retiring was as a project lead, and some of the best teams that I had and the most fulfilling, if you will, projects I did were ones where it was new concepts, new processes, new technology, and you had to learn from failures oftentimes. You had to try, test, and so it made it so much more rich of an experience. And there was chaos and there was constant attention to detail and things. But in the end, you had that satisfaction that you created something brand new. And when you see and hear the customers loving what you did, that's even more, gravy on the potatoes, if you will.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we're undermining the impact that we have and the sense of purpose in what we do by not looking, literally or metaphorically in the eyes of the customers and understand that everything that we do have a customer on the other side, and we're making an impact in their lives. And now the question is, what kind of impact do we want to make?
Absolutely. So, what do you hope people will gain as they go through and read your book and do the exercises?
My biggest hope is that we will make a choice to stop being victims and recognize that being a victim is a choice. Okay, no matter what someone did to you, the mindset of victimhood is still your choice. My biggest hope that people will read it and first feel like they're not alone, that the imposter syndrome happens to everyone, that the gratitude denial syndrome happens to everyone. I want them first to feel that it's normal to have those fears and prejudice and biases. But then I want them to gain the courage of saying, if Lior did it, if his clients did it, I can do that too. Let me start writing my own chapter. And there is a dedicated chapter there that is guiding people through their COVID experience, because we all started there as victims. I want them to make this exercise and I want them to discover their own superpower. And I want them to understand that even in the most, if you think about COVID, the world was a victim. Everyone was a victim. Nobody had answers. Nobody had a toolkit. Nobody had medicine. Nothing. We all started from that baseline and we all emerged out of it. So I want people to gain the courage to make the choice and say, despite the fact that this is not an event that I chose, I am going to transform this experience into future ready toolbox. I want to transform this experience into resilience. And I'm going to lead my team and I'm going to lead myself through stories, not through facts. We don't live in a world of facts. We live in a world of stories.
Yeah.
Because stories can accelerate us or stories can hold us back. And I want those stories that when you are in charge, when you take charge of that narrative, you'll be accelerating your future and you'll be enjoying the future and not just being dragged through it against your will. So I want them to understand that it's normal, and I want them to gain the courage, and I want them to start actually writing those chapters, touch those places in their past where they didn't touch before, and understand that with the right discipline, you can convert them into new energy. You can convert them into new capabilities. And that's what's going to make your life better, richer, and happier.
Yeah. Change management is always something that's almost avoided as we go introduce new projects, processes, and things. It's almost like the leadership anticipates there are going to be problems, so just don't address it, and maybe they won't be so bad. But I always found that the more knowledge you give to the people and listen to what they're saying so that you can respond to what they're saying as you actively listen to them, allows them to maybe handle change a little bit better. But again, such a great message to the leaders out there that that you have to be the one that sets the example and take charge, and
I'll give you an
acknowledge.
example, Vicky. I'll give you
Mhm.
an example. Usually, when an organization engage with me around change, my first brutal message to the CEO is, "I need to meet Susie from accounting." And he's like, "Who's
Yeah.
Susie from accounting?"
Yeah,
And I'm
that's
like,
a
"Susie from
problem.
accounting." Yeah, Susie from accounting is in charge of your strategy. He said, "No, no, no, I have a VP of strategy." I said, "No, no, no. Susie from accounting in her daily choices is either going to accelerate the strategy or she's going to kill the strategy 100 small deaths." And it's not Susie herself, but all your frontline employees. If they are not
Yeah.
engaged, if they don't understand why we're doing it, and you need to invest the time to do that, and you're absolutely
Yeah.
right, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars were spent on big technology projects and very little on preparing the users to actually take advantage of that. And
Yeah.
you'll do this big project, and then 6 months later, they're still using Excel, they're still using Word, they're still using other tools. We're underestimating the power of people within an organization and the importance of their role there. And when you want your organization to be a caring organization, thinking outside of the box, and customer centric, and leading, and all these creative, guess what? These are all choices of Susie from accounting. If
Yeah.
Susie will choose to be creative, she will be. And if she wouldn't, nothing is going to happen. So
Yeah.
we need to help people embrace change, but not as a threat that they have to, but rather as an accelerator to their missions and to their purpose.
And I think whenever you involve those front end people, the people that are the true users of it, they have ownership then. They feel a loyalty to make it successful because they know they were part of the solution. But when you push it down to them and they think, well, you don't even know, you've not sat in my chair, you don't know what I go through every day, then they're almost adverse to making it succeed because it's not what they would have done.
It's true, but let me build on top of it. We don't live in facts and processes. And usually you push down processes, you push down facts. People don't react to facts
Mhm.
and processes. They react to stories. That's why we have a dedicated chapter on how to mobilize your team through stories.
Yeah,
Stories is an emotional tool that allows them to believe in what you do, to believe that you lead them well into that. Stories is what helps people kind of accelerate their performance, and we need as leaders to recognize that maybe 20, 30 years ago your boss was just commending you from the top and you just submitted because, but that's no longer the tools here. And
yeah,
yes, stories makes you a little bit vulnerable, but stories what allows your people to believe in you and to decide to follow you, which is, by the way, their choice.
yeah. So absolutely true. I mean, it's why, I started doing this after retiring because I just saw that how impactful you can be as a leader when you lead from the heart first, as building those relationships, listening to your people, and um, and that's why I also teach communication because people just don't do a great job at the way that they communicate things, with their tone or the how their things are misinterpreted. So many tools that you need to be a leader today, and not just a manager, but a leader to make a difference in your
It's
organization.
It's true. From my experience, oftentimes what they do is they mimic their first boss from 30 years
Oh,
ago.
yeah.
And that worked then. You don't use the same cell phone from 30 years ago. You don't use the same Windows from 30 years ago, yet you somehow believe that the tools from 30 years ago that your boss was using are relevant today. But I would say there's one more thing there. I love to treat leaders and managers also as human beings first. They are afraid. Their their image of a good leader is an invincible leader. The know-it-all, every answer you need, I have that. What they fail to understand is that when their employees see that type of invincibility, they're actually afraid of it
Yeah.
because they cannot be invincible. And I always give them the example of a best baseball player. What is their track record? 0.35. that means they lost 65% of the cases? No, they swung. It's part of the process. Not
Yeah.
swinging is losing. So when I give them this example, people like poses, oh wow, they only make it 1/3 of the times. And I said, now imagine if your coach comes to you and say, oh, from now on, 100% home run, or you fired. What do you think is going to happen? It's going to paralyze. Nobody's going to pick up the bat because
Yeah.
nobody can do 100%. So
Great
when I use
analogy.
this example, it kind of breaks that invincibility concept, and they were like, you know what, you got a point there.
Yeah.
And I said, stop being invincible and be authentic and be vulnerable, because your vulnerability will invite your people to follow you. If you're invincible, if you're above all of them, if you're a know-it-all guy, if you're an answer dispenser, guess what? Nobody wants to follow that.
Yeah, that is so very true. So very true. Well, I'm sure that the folks that are listening today want to know more about what you do and perhaps how that you might help their organization or them as leaders. So I'm going to share my slide. Those of you that are just listening, you know, you can go to my YouTube channel and get all of this information. So please subscribe to Vicki Noethling, or you can go to findyourleadershipconfidence.com, my website. So the website is LiorArussy.com. That's LiorArussy.com. On LinkedIn, it's his name again, Lior Arussy. And then on Twitter or X, it's Lior Strativity. Lior Strativity. I'm going to turn it over to Lior to talk to you about things you might find when you go on that website, resources, links that can help you, as well as where he spends the most time on social media that you can DM him to get a faster response to any questions you might have. So Lior, it's all yours.
Sure. Thank you very much, Vicki. So on liorarussy.com, you're going to find a wealth of articles and interviews that I publish on a regular basis in order to make sure that I'm spreading new ideas. You know, some of the latest articles are challenging with what story is immobilizing your team. Another one is how do you build a trust-based organizations? All of these articles, wherever they're being published around the world, I'm bringing them to my website in order to make it available and accessible to anyone who wants to spark a new idea, look for a new way of looking at their operation and leadership. It's all there for you, including, as I mentioned, videos and articles and samples of my books and so on and so forth. So it's all there, all free. Please use it and enjoy it. I'm most active on LinkedIn. That's why I will place the latest articles and the latest interviews and this podcast when it will be brought in. So if you want to DM me, LinkedIn is the best way. And then if the conversation requires it, we'll move to email and we'll continue from there. But that's your best one. And liorarussy.com/dare-to-author is the dedicated page for the book. It will tell you more about what the book includes, some of the endorsements, and obviously some links in order to purchase the book. So
Fantastic.
These are all available to you. From there, we'll try to understand where you're at, what your situation, and if I can be of help, we'll craft a way to do that.
Fantastic. Lior, I knew it was going to be a great conversation. You just got a wealth of information. We are very much aligned in our thoughts, and I know that the audience is going to glean a lot of good insights from what you shared today. But thank you for being a wonderful guest.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Vicki.
Yes. As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.